Hello, friends. Can you guys hear me? I'm blurred. I'm still trying to figure out this setup. I want it over here. Is that better? Nope, that's blurrier. How's that? Is that better? All right, what's up? Little Friday stream. We'll hang out here for a little bit. Feel free to post your questions, comments, whatever else into the chat. We could talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. High limit franchises, flow late models at Sonoya, midgets not racing at Placerville, whatever you want. I guess I should probably turn this music down a little bit too, huh? We'll fade that out. Wait, no, that's sounds. That's all sounds. And the music is gone. I know some of you hate the music. I kind of like the music, but whatever. So what's everybody up to? What are you guys watching tonight? Are we going to the track? Are we not going to the track? Are you out of work yet? Are you watching from work? Don't worry, I won't tell any of your boss that you're watching from work. It's okay. We already have questions. So what I'm doing right now, so we're streaming to 3 places. We're streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and the Patreon, the DIRTRACKR Patreon. If you want to get on that, patreon.com/DIRTRACKR, it's free to sign up. This is the first time streaming to Patreon, and what I've realized is that my streaming software, I have to have Patreon open also so I can see the chat there because their chat messages don't show up in here. So if I have a question from the Patreon, it's not going to show up on the screen. I'm just going to have to read it from the chat. But if they're on Facebook or YouTube, I can put them on the screen. So just FYI, that's what we're doing. Let's see. First questions. This one is always a favorite of everybody's. Why does the Woo sprint some of their drivers from attending other events and the late models do not? Because history. I don't know. I don't know that there's like a real reason for this, other than the fact that like if you tried to do this with late models, you wouldn't have any late models join your series. But there's so many more sprint car races on the sprint car side that you kind of don't really need to run. And to be fair, this question is only a problem for the fan base. The drivers don't care about this at all. The drivers that are fine with this, they join the series, they're okay with it. The drivers that aren't okay with it, they don't join the Outlaws. So this isn't that big of a deal. I don't know why this is always such a like a thing that sticks in the craw of people. They don't have the freedom. They have all the freedom. You can run every single World of Outlaws race the entire season and still race every other race you want to race. You won't get the benefits of being a full-time series driver, but you could still do it. No one's going to stop you. I haven't seen the Mansfield schedule yet. Is it finally out? I know they were teasing that it was going to be out, and I saw that the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series has added Mansfield. I'm a little surprised by that. I didn't think that was going to happen yet, but Matt Tifft doing big things there in Ohio. From Patreon, with the Outlaws membership, if a driver runs a lower series like midgets or 360s, would they count against them? I don't believe they do. We've seen plenty of drivers run other stuff. I would imagine that they would probably still get permission from the series just to make sure, but I don't believe that that would be a problem. Where do I think Madsen will go? Which tour? I have no idea. Everything that I had heard was that they were going to return to the Outlaws, but now it sounds like maybe things aren't so clear. I think this could be a coin toss and maybe a high limit lean. We'll see. This is kind of like the big question everybody wants to know right now is what the 41 will do. I think it's just as likely that they stay Outlaws as it is that they go high limit. I think in terms of like what we talked about on the show yesterday, I think they are probably the most likely, and it makes the most sense for them to switch. Because knowing that you have to finish top 8 in the points both years in 26 and 27 to earn a franchise for 2028, then that kind of changes the calculus of who could potentially jump and make it make sense. And it would make sense that like if you could finish in the top 3 in the points in 1 year, that you would do it. But there's only a handful of guys and teams that really have the ability to do that. And Macedo would certainly be very high on that list, if not the guy. So if they believe that they are not capable of beating Buddy Kofoid, David Gravel, and winning the big money with the Outlaws, it might make a lot of sense for them to jump to high limit, finish top 3, guarantee themselves, a franchise for the future and maybe get a little bit more money. I know at least some portion of their sponsorship is very kind of tied to the Outlaws. I don't know what the dollar amount is and if they'd be willing to give that up or if they could convince that sponsor to go with them. I don't know. It is not the Outlaw sponsorship, but is one of their sponsors. But I don't know. I think that's a big question that a lot of people have right now. And I don't know that there is even an answer yet. I don't know if there are Barry Braun updates or not. I'm not going to continue to follow this until maybe there's some sort of resolution. If he's, convicted or something, I'm not going to give Barry Braun updates every single day. This saga has been going on for many, many years. People continued to show up to his races, even though all of these things were out there. So there's not going to be a daily Barry Braun XR segment on the show. We'll check in on this in a few months if there's something to talk about. The World of Outlaws sprint car schedule should be out, I would imagine, sometime next week. Brian Carter was on Wing Nation this week and talked about that. I would imagine the Lucas schedule, since it's already not out yet, excuse me. We may have to wait till PRI for that one. I kind of would have thought it would have been out already. But yeah, so I don't know when the Lucas schedule is, but we will have the World of Outlaws sprint schedule sometime next week. There has been no official Sheldon announcement. He told Flow Racing and Kyle McFadden today that he's going to stay Outlaws. It's KCP though. It's done. Kyle Ripper was helping the KCP guys at World Finals. I heard Kyle Ripper was wearing a KCP hat at Millbridge. It's KCP. I'm literally the only one talking about this. And we've kind of gotten to this point where like I'm the only one that will talk about rumors. So yeah, this is done. It's happening. The franchise is sold. All of the things are in place. We just don't have the announcement yet. I've heard they've got a good sponsor on board. But when we will get the announcement, I don't know. I had initially heard that this announcement was going to happen World Finals week. I don't know why that didn't happen. But yes, this is happening. Also, very intriguing in terms of like the pairing of them, right? Prutzman, obviously coming off that stint with KKR, kind of did a whole lot of nothing this year, helped out some regional guys in Central PA. You didn't hear about him. But like it could be that this is a very, very solid pairing. I don't know yet what they're going to have for engines and cars and all of that type of stuff, but that team will, I believe, run out of the Charlotte area. Spires obviously has their cup shop here. So, but this could be a very interesting one to watch next year. I mean, I certainly don't have an answer for this, like in terms of what is working and doesn't work in a state. High Limit went to Florence this last season, and I don't think it went particularly well. So I think that probably is, more up to the fan base than it is anything else. and this kind of ties into some of the California stuff that got talked about this week. If it was such a slam dunk and everybody was making money, then these races would be everywhere. But like, this stuff isn't that really that complicated. I think people want to believe that it's about politics or people's hurt feelings or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, if somebody is making, if a series is making a boatload of cash going to a track, then they're going to continue going to that track. If they're not making as much money or losing money, then they're not going to go. I don't think this is all that complicated. This has been a question I've seen a lot as well, the Tyler Walker stuff. I don't know what's happening with Tyler Walker. I don't know why he popped up in the first place. I don't know if he's coming back or not coming back. I have no idea. He wasn't competitive when he did come back, which I don't know why people thought he would be. But yeah, I don't have any updates on this. I have no idea what's going on with Tyler Walker or Rutherford or any of that bananas things that happened. Yeah. Yes, this is happening. Well, not the purse. I don't know about the purses, but we know, at least there's talk that the point fund and all of the bonuses stuff, that there's going to be an increase to that. I don't know if it will be a high limit level increase like we've seen, but there are lots of rumors that this is going to be bumped up for next year. From Patreon, Chad says, what's your favorite event to attend, or what's one you'd like to attend that you haven't, if there is one? I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to Knoxville or Eldora or anything like that. So would certainly like to get to those at some point. But I mean, I've been to World Finals a ton. I've been to DIRTRACKR Nationals a ton. I've been to Williams Grove. I've been to, a few places. I've been to Chili Bowl a couple of times. So yeah, all good events. Yeah, this is obviously what I heard as well around World Finals. So if this is the final number, I have no idea, but this is what a lot of people were talking about in the pit area. Going to the show at BAPS tomorrow. Yeah, I think it'll be a good one. Looks like it'd be a fun field there, kind of a mix of local guys and some guys trying to get some laps in with their new deals. Hopefully it won't be chilly up there. How many rookies do you think next year on the Outlaw Tour? I think a couple, maybe two. Obviously we already know about Torgerson. As I've said on the show, there is, rumblings about Axum and Landon Crawley, and all of that. So yeah, I think there are possibilities out there to make that field. It won't be 7 like we had this year, but I do think there will be more than what we have currently. If you owned a sprint car team, which national series would you follow? I don't know. That's a good question. I think that it depends. So the beauty, obviously, of high limit is it's a little bit less of a commitment, at least in terms of nights. So do you like that freedom? And I think the thing right now, right, is it's like, can you join high limit and like get a franchise? Because the franchise is going to be, quite a bit more lucrative than not having one. So, can you buy one? Can you get in that way? On the Outlaw side, there are obviously all of the, kind of key events. you know, are all Outlaw sanctioned. And, you know, if you are bringing a merch trailer, you know, I think that is not insignificant. So I don't know. I think there is, you know, positives and negatives on both sides. So I don't know. I have not heard any more Dalton Wilson news. I've heard more rumors about Wells, whether they're true or not, I don't know. But yeah, nothing new about Dalton Wilson. I think this is an interesting thing to say here as well, is like, if I know things, I will probably say them on the show. I get messages really regularly on Facebook and on, you know, DMs and emails of people asking me what's going on. And I'm not going to just like share things in a Facebook message. If I have information that's good enough to share, I will do that on the show, just for future reference. I don't know if I believe that there's a high chance that there's only one rookie with high limit. I mean, you know, the question would be, you know, some of the names that we've heard that could go Outlaws, like could Emerson Axum go high limit instead? I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to think. So I think it's probably possible that we could have rookies, more than one rookie on both sides. So I don't know that it's, you know, a high chance right now that it's just Tanner. I think there's the stuff that happened yesterday, and I think what will happen or what will be announced from the Outlaws is going to have a big effect on what people decide. And I think that's why right now we don't have a whole lot of clarity about a lot of teams, because they're still waiting to kind of put that full picture together. And as far as I know, like, there is obviously the stuff that we saw yesterday in the release from High Limit about what money is available for non-franchise teams. But like, there's not a ton of clarity, like in terms of detail. Like they said that if you win the championship, you could get $350,000. If you finish in the top 6, those positions would all be worth $100,000. But what exactly are those dollar amounts? We don't know. How does that all break out? How do they get paid? What, you know, is it more point fund at the end of the season? Will they get more in tow money during the season? I think there's a lot of detail things in there that we don't know the answer to yet. So I think until there's more clarity, which I would think would happen in the next couple of weeks, we probably won't have a good sense of some of those other teams and what decisions they make. The Wing Nation interview with Carter was very interesting. He seems like he has stuff up his sleeve, I would imagine is what Marie means. Yeah, so I was thinking about this too, and people love to like knock on Brian Carter, just obviously because it's World Racing Group and everybody has to hate the Outlaws. But like, he goes to events, he's pretty visible. He does this yearly thing with Wing Nation where he talks about stuff. He was racing a pro stock at World Short Track. I don't think Carter gets enough credit for what he's done over the last 20 years since he took control of World Racing Group. It's just kind of easy to hate on the guy for some reason. I don't really know. I worked for Carter for 7 years. I can't say anything bad about the guy. I know a lot of other people can say bad things or whatever, but I think he's a smart guy. He's been around racing a whole long time. He's gotten this company, World Racing Group, through some really, really terrible times. Sprint car racing, as you know it, only exists because of the things that he and his group of people were able to do through the years. I don't think that, like, this idea that, let me take a step back. There is a lot of buzz, I think, right now, and I've been talking about this with a few people, about what is going on with High Limit. There's no doubt about that. They have a lot of positive momentum, which, is great for them. But this idea that suddenly the Outlaws are going to disappear because High Limit is here is just completely incorrect. And you have to understand, World Racing Group is not just the World of Outlaws sprint cars. World Racing Group is also the World of Outlaws late models that's competed for a very long time alongside the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. So they know how to operate a series up against another contender. Also, World Racing Group is big events, right? It's DIRTRACKR Nationals, it's Super Dirt Week, it's all of those things. It's also DIRTRACKR sanctioning, right? At the end of the day, if you are a dirt fan in this country, you don't want World Racing Group to go away. You don't want it to go out of business, because if it goes out of business, there's a lot of things that it will take down with it. So you should be rooting, if you are a dirt fan in this country at any level, you should be rooting for this company to continue. Rooting for it to fail, I think, is really, really, really short-sighted. I certainly think it's interesting. I always like seeing guys branch out and try other things. So Drake Troutman running a midget at the Chili Bowl is, I think, will be fun. Obviously, I'm a fan of that. This is another thing I haven't heard anything new about in the last few weeks. There's lots of weird tire things going on right now. We know Hoosier is testing. I know there's been conversations with other tire manufacturers. I know there are other people trying to start tire companies. There's lots of things happening in the tire space. Whether they turn into anything real or not, I don't know. I've heard that, some of the stuff Hoosier was potentially looking at would kind of take tires back to what they were before. Whether any of that's true, I don't know. We obviously know there's been testing. We know some of the drivers that were at those tests, but where they are in that process, I am not aware. This was the comments about Carter were not like, I'm not taking things away from anyone else, but I'm talking about the world of Outlaws in this moment in 2025 would not exist were it not for what Brian Carter did in 2005 and 2006 to take that company from literally the very bottom to now where things are today. Like Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson are able to do what they're able to do with High Limit because of the path already paved by World Racing Group and the World of Outlaws. Again, taking nothing away from Ted Johnson and all of the people who came before him, but where we are right now, the last 20 years, is very, very much about Brian Carter and his team of people and what they were able to do. And again, we can have these conversations, right? Like we can say that about Brian Carter, but that is not like, just Carter gets all of the credit, right? Like those things they're not mutually exclusive. Like they can both be true at the same time. This will never happen. I'm sorry, but it just won't. Like having all the races on one streaming platform is just never going to happen. And like, this idea that Flow is going to buy World Racing Group and combine everything, we're going to have one sprint car series again. Like it's not happening. This is a pipe dream. I mean, like, so I think this stuff is, you kind of see it across sports, right? Where, one way to get what you want, or at least try to get what you want, is to put out public pressure. So I think it's, this is a tactic, right? And to be fair, World Racing Group has been adding money to the sport for years, right? Like everybody wants to say that they're only adding money because High Limit, but it's like if you go back and look, there's lots of press releases that you can find on the Outlaw website of them adding purse money, adding point fund money before High Limit was ever even considered an idea. So they're going to continue adding money. I think the big question will be, can they add as much money to the Outlaws as High Limit is added to, to their franchise system, right? And you're looking at two very different things. Flow Racing is a part of a much larger company in Flow Sports that has, $100 million of venture funding behind it. World Racing Group owns everything, right? So they have to make money from Dirt Vision, from the series, from merch, from all of those things. And that money has to support all of their racing efforts. So they can't put in what they don't have. And Carter's not going to run the company out of business to get, to some future point where, they're paying $10 million to win the sprint car championship. And like, you can't have, the sprint car side paying 10 times what the late model side is paying, right? So you kind of got to bring everything along together. So I think there's going to continue to be a progression. Will they offer the same amount of money that High Limit is? I don't know. I don't know if they know the answer to that. I don't know if the teams know the answer to that, but this is a way to put pressure on the series to continue adding money. But like, if guys leave the Outlaws are going to replace them. Like if everybody piles over to High Limit, there's going to be a ton of opportunity to race with the Outlaws and make good money. So they will continue to backfill with teams if for some reason Gravel or Kofoid or Macedo decides to leave. So again, this idea that the Outlaws are going to go away or something like that is just not going to happen. I never dirt raced. I have drag raced, which is, if you look at this trophy right here, that's a drag racing trophy. And then I also worked in NASCAR for a long time as a pit crew guy, which is what that helmet is right there. I would like you to say more about this. High Limit Racing has a better race production. What does that mean? Watching High Limit has become more entertainment to watch. I would like to know more there. This is an interesting one. Obviously, I saw the announcement yesterday. Ernie is going from comp cam, or has left comp cams, and is now kind of restarting up the MLRA. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And I know the two series kind of coexisted on some way before. But are we splitting things? I don't know. I'm curious to see just kind of how this plays out. Obviously Ernie's been around a long time. But like, does comp cams take a hit for this? Can the MLRA get back to where it was? And like the MLRA, multiple events on their schedule were co-sanctions with Lucas. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one. This one's a bit curious to me. I don't have any sense of Hagerstown Speedway, like outside of seeing, PA Speed Week stuff there. I don't know what that facility is. I don't know what it looks like. Could it host a full series? I have no sense of why or why not, Hagerstown has a race or doesn't have a race or deserves a race. Like one of the rumors that, and it's obviously something we've talked about on the Daily Show is, that at some point the Lucas series kind of gets brought under that Flow High Limit ish kind of umbrella. I don't know if that's happening, if it's not happening. A lot of people think it's kind of already done. I don't know, but like, I don't know that they will start a series from scratch, but if there is a future High Limit late model series, I would guess that it would be what is now the Lucas series. The first races I ever went to as a kid were dirt races. My dad was a dirt racer. I worked for the World of Outlaws for a long time. So yeah, been around it pretty much my whole life. This isn't like, I want details though. Like, what do you think, like specifically, what do you think is different between High Limit and World of Outlaws? Like, what is High Limit doing that's that much better versus what the World of Outlaws do on the TV side and at the track side? Like, give me the deets. Is this a question? Justin Sanders is not going High Limit. Justin Sanders is staying in California. unless something has been announced that I don't know about. Yeah, this will be interesting. Obviously, Dominic Scelzi driving the 83. That's great. It'll certainly be interesting to see what Brad and Kevin Rudeen can do with NARC. Hopefully things will be a little, like, we won't end up in situations where NARC is scheduled up against, you know, a big show at Skagit. So yeah, I definitely think there are some positives to that team. On the TV side, I feel like Hyman is more personable. What does personable mean? Like, you like Tony Laporta and Chase Rodman better than Johnny Gibson and Connor Wade? I'm curious. Like, what does that mean? Between late models and sprint cars, do you feel either division is more stable between both having two major touring series, both with great streaming options, etc.? Are both? I think both are in pretty good spots right now. You know, I think we just saw, you know, we just watched the Outlaws announce, you know, 18% purse increases for World of Outlaws late model events. You know, obviously Lucas continues to put on big events. The World of Outlaws continue to put on big events. You know, the sprint car stuff is like super intriguing. Yeah, I don't know. I think both are in a really good spot right now. Why do I get so defensive about Brian Carter, and what is my beef with Barry Braun? I have absolutely no beef whatsoever with Barry Braun. As in terms of like being defensive about Brian Carter, like, I'm not like super defensive about Brian Carter, but I think he gets a bad rap. I think a lot of people have like really negative things to say about the guy, and I don't know that any of those people have ever actually spoken to Brian Carter. He doesn't get enough credit for the stuff that he's done. Like, that's just a fact. Like, Jeremy Elliott talks all the time, like, the guy should be in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. So why isn't he on the ballot? And back to this, I've actually had a lot of conversations with Barry Braun. Like, as he was doing podcast things and XR and all of those types of things, like, my show was one of the few that was actually talking about what his racing and what was going on with his racing as it was playing out. So this is like not true. This is such a loaded question. I am not answering this question. Absolutely not. Yes, I saw that we're having 3 nights. It is Millstream, Mansfield, Sharon is kind of this umbrella 3-night Ohio thing under his Buckeye Brawl thing. I think that's great. I don't know why they haven't announced it yet. That is not an answer I have. But it has been done for a long time. And yeah, so he's staying Outlaws. He told Flow Racing that today, that they're staying Outlaws. This has kind of been a thing for a long time about, like, how can we save money for the competitors? How can we help them make more money? I'm trying to make that a little more sharp. Yeah, like the multi-day shows. I think you end up with feedback from, the teams, that it's like obviously easier to be in one place over multiple nights. The question is just, can you sell tickets for 2 or 3 nights in a row to the same racetrack? And like, obviously some places that's not super feasible. And, you know, might not be the most lucrative way to do it. But obviously if you're not running the truck up and down the road to different tracks, it's going to be cheaper. This is like an interesting question to me right now. Like, obviously we saw the things play out this week with, you know, the Outlaws going or not going to California. But like, there's obviously issues out there, right? Like if you see the big areas, right? Like you see Pennsylvania, you see Ohio, you know, you see the Midwest. Like if all of a sudden people quit going, you know, the series quit going to Pennsylvania, you would be like, well, that would obviously be a big question, right? And so that's what we're kind of seeing right now in California. And like even High Limit, right? Like they've pulled back. They were going there twice. And like, yeah, they're going to start the year at Vegas and they're going to be in Arizona. They're going to be closer to the West Coast, right? But they're not going to California. And it's not like there's a lack of racetracks, but in that spring time, right? Weather is an issue. Can they sell tickets? You know, it is expensive to bring the teams all the way out there. And again, like if everything was so hunky-dory, if everything was so great, and you know, because we keep hearing, right, this is an important part, this is an important sprint car part of the country. And it's true, there are tons of guys right now that are racing that came from that part of the country, that you know, grew up there, that came, you know, through all of that stuff and are now high limit drivers, World of Outlaws drivers, all of that. But it's like, what is actually going on there? Like, why is this a problem? Like if there's so many teams and there's so many fans, then why are teams, you know, or why are the series pulling back from there, right? Like if there's money to be made, they would go there. And it's like, I don't have a sense of what that, you know, what the issues are. Like, are they really like, again, and like I said earlier, like it comes back to the money thing. If they were making a ton of money, they would be there. It's like there's a reason why they go, like why High Limit's going to Port Royal 8 times. There's a reason why World of Outlaws go to Knoxville a bunch of times and Williams Grove a bunch of times, because those shows sell tickets and they sell streaming passes. But it's like if those tracks out in California aren't selling enough tickets, you know, if you know, there are, you know, obviously the expenses to go out there are way more. So like the fees, you know, your sanction fees and things like that, if they're not covering, you know, all of that extra cost, because it's not just the teams that have extra costs, the series has extra costs as well. Like they're bringing trucks and trailers and employees and all of that stuff as well. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting problem right now, and one that, you know, it's like everybody's like, oh, you know, the Outlaws, they're giving up this part of the country, it's not important to them, whatever. And it's like, I don't think that's true at all. But I wonder what are the underlying issues? Like, why isn't this, you know, not a slam dunk? I think, you know, we've got to get to a point where the at-track product is just better. And like the thing you hear all the time is like a big problem that dirt racing has is when you go to the track, you're going to get dirty. Like you can't enjoy a race and not go home and then have to take a shower. And there's very few other activities. Like, you know, if I go to an NBA game, I don't have to go home and take a shower. I wasn't running around. I was sitting inside drinking a beer. And so like, I think that is, in terms of like trying to draw in less hardcore fans, like more casuals, like that's an issue. But also like programs need to be run more efficiently. There needs to be more entertainment options when you're at the track, right? There needs to be better food and drink options. I've like taken heat for saying that before, but like we're eating the same crappy cheeseburgers, the same crappy chicken fingers, the same, you know, it's like the same, you know, frozen French fries, all of that stuff at every racetrack across the country. It's like, why has there been no updates to grandstands? Why are bathrooms terrible? How come parking sucks? Like all of these things. And whenever I bring this stuff up, I'm the bad guy. They're like, oh, you don't know how difficult it is to run a racetrack. And it's like, okay, that might be true, but also look around. minor league baseball is a better experience, right? Like any professional sport at this point is a better experience. Like, why haven't dirt tracks kept up? Like, make some investments, right? And like, you don't even have to do big things. Like I can't remember who it was. Brian Holbert had posted a photo of it on Twitter of a track, I think in Texas or Oklahoma, that had painted their fence black. And that might sound like a stupid thing, but like when you're sitting outside of the track, painting the fence black almost makes the fence disappear. So now that fence that's in between you now looks like it's not there. It's like a tiny little thing that you can do to just make your experience better. But we don't see enough of that, right? And it's like, what do we get? Oh, we're not selling enough tickets and streaming is the problem. Like, instead of going to work on their facility, people just complain about streaming. It's like, no, make the at track experience better, and then people won't stream. People want to be at the track. Like, it's a much better situation and experience to be at the track, to be able to walk to the pits to see your favorite drivers, to take your kids in to get autographs and buy t-shirts and hang out with some friends. And like, it's just better that way. But there are also lots of negatives to going to the racetrack and at a lot of racetracks around the country. And it's like, why aren't we addressing those? Why are promoters getting off the hook for not fixing some of those things that have been a problem at their tracks for a very long time? Yeah, this is something that I've not done a great job of. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/DIRTRACKR. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We've got Patreon, patreon.com/DIRTRACKR. It's free to sign up there. What else? The website, dirttracker.com. You can find it on the podcast places. Yeah, so do all of those things. Those are helpful. Who determines where the national series race at? The local promoters putting up the money or the sanctioning body? So it's sort of both. Like, obviously the sanctioning bodies are setting their own schedules. But if series are or if tracks are interested in hosting a series, they can reach out and say, hey, we would love to have an event. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. There is one model where the track just pays a sanction fee to the series, and then they're on the hook for all of the expenses and all of the risk. There's also a JV where it's basically split, where the track and the series, join together on the risk, but then they also have to split any profits. And then there's also a situation where the series can just rent the track and they control everything. And through the course of the season, you see all three of those types of models get put into play for different events. Over time, you've seen a company like World Racing Group and the two World of Outlaws series. A lot more of those events have become joint ventures. And what you get with that is you get the marketing and the social media stuff from World Racing Group. They've got an entire staff dedicated to that stuff, and I know High Limit is building a lot of that stuff as well. But you get that kind of added capability. And so it's a good thing for a lot of tracks to be able to do that, because a lot of those tracks don't have a social media team. They don't have email lists. They don't have, advertising connections and all of those things. So there's kind of pluses and minuses to all the different ones. But, if you want more help from the series, that is a way to do that. But yeah, so the answer to this is kind of a little bit of both, but the series put their own schedules together. I get asked about this pretty regularly. I haven't done merch since late in 2024. I don't know when and if I'm going to do merch again. It's a lot of work. It's really satisfying to get an order and then get to pack it up and send it out to people. I love that part of it, but creating designs, getting things made, getting all of the supplies to ship it, Like all of that stuff is like a ton of work. And this DIRTRACKR thing is literally just me. So yeah, it's not an easy thing to do at this point to get merch. So I would love to say that there will be more in the future, but I don't have a good answer for you there. Oops. Thank you, Alice. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I don't think that racetracks need to get public funding, right? Like I don't expect a racetrack to, I don't expect every racetrack to be Eldora or be Knoxville, right? Like that's fine. But there are also things that you can do that don't cost a lot of money, to make things better. And I fully understand that a lot of racetracks operate on razor thin margins. I understand all of those things. I've been around a lot of racetracks. Like I said, I've worked on the promoting side. I've worked on the marketing side. I know what all of that stuff looks like, but that doesn't mean that they should just completely be off the hook for not making more advancements. Like so many racetracks got built and things, improved into the 80s, 90s, whatever, early 2000s. And a lot of places, not much has changed since then. And it's like, that's not okay. The high limit announcer is terrible. By the way, if you guys haven't subscribed to the Rodman Rundown on YouTube, you should certainly do that. Chase does a great job. I don't think the high limit announcer is that bad. I mean, he's not great, like, let's be honest, but no, I'm just kidding. Chase does a really nice job. Chase got thrown into effectively a situation he'd never been in before, right? Like he'd never been the main play-by-play announcer. And I think he's done a really nice job. And Tony Laporta, we just say like, Tony Laporta had the roughest introduction to dirt racing announcing that I've seen anybody have. This guy was getting absolutely blasted on social media when he became the USAC announcer. He came a long way really quickly. And now he does a great job reporting for High Limit. I like the team that High Limit has. I think they play off of each other very well. I like all of the things that they do. And when we talk about announcers who suck, I don't think that there are announcers who suck like at the national level. There are some local guys that I really, really don't like, and I have a hard time with. But none of the national guys, like I'm a fan of all of the national guys. I think they all do a great job. I don't know about PPM. I would almost assume that maybe he's kind of going to run a similar deal next year with Bernie, where it's kind of pick and choose, hit or miss. I don't know that we'll see PPM get a big opportunity with a team. Silly season deal. Most of the rides are kind of wrapped up anyway, but I would imagine we'll see more of the same from PPM next year. See, this is like another good thing, right? Where you want to get people in and out of the track in a reasonable amount of time, right? Like, and another thing that I got blasted for is, talking about some of these tracks that run, 6, 8, 10 divisions, and then they run until 2 or 3 in the morning. And it's like, we saw this a few times during Summer Nationals, right? Where it's like they've got 4 divisions running on a Tuesday and they run until midnight or 1 a.m. But it's like, man, like people got to work the next day. Like kids go to school. Like you can't be running that late if we're at a point where baseball games are taking 2 hours. NBA games are done in 2 hours. NFL games are what, 2.5, 3 hours. I don't know. Like you got to get people out. Like a full show can't go 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. Like, that's just insanity. And it's like, obviously, when we talk about things being on television, one of the big issues why dirt racing isn't on television is because you end up in a situation where, like, you can't show it live. Like, you can't have huge breaks for track work on live television. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, like, even like you look at something like the NHRA that takes all day, right? Like, those events aren't live. It's tape delayed and everything's chopped together so it can fit. And then maybe the very last part is live, but it's also an issue. Sheldon is not starting his own team. He's going to KCP. Yeah, James Essex is another great example of a good national series announcer. I think we have to be careful with the two-man booth thing. I feel like a two-man booth works for a lot of sports because there's more downtime and there's more opportunities for a color guy to get involved. But like when you have a feature rolling, if you go green, green to checkered on a 25 or 30 lap sprint car feature, like you're looking at, that race could be done in 8 minutes, 9 minutes. Like I don't think we need another guy trying to jump in there and add commentary. And I think what you see a lot of times is, and like, we saw this with Tyler Courtney too, like when he's in the booth, it's like when there is downtime, it's great to have that second guy in there. But when stuff is happening on track, it's a little bit more difficult. But like the question then becomes is who is the second guy? And like, obviously Tyler Courtney was available because of not great circumstances. And then we would much rather see Tyler Courtney driving a sprint car than being in the booth. But so like, who is a guy that you could go get that can join them in the booth? And it's one of the things that bothers me a lot of times about when the big series come to town and the local announcer also, for some reason, needs to be involved in calling the national race. And you end up with this back and forth between two guys trying to call one race. I wish that when the big series came to town, that the local announcer would handle their divisions and you would let the main, series announcer handle their stuff. I think there are a couple of places, where it's okay that the other guy gets involved. You want to talk about Tony Bachhoven at Knoxville, if you've got maybe a Blake Anderson at Eldora, but like for the most part, I would just like to see the national announcers handle their own series. Are you saying that we're not allowed to complain about how long a show takes? I don't agree with that if that's what you're saying. This one's a tough one because, like, I think there are things, like, obviously there's lots of announcements still to come, right? We don't know what Donnie Schatz's plans are. We don't officially know what Gio Scelzi is doing. We don't officially know what Sheldon Haudenschild is doing. So are those announcements going to come before PRI or are they just waiting for PRI? I don't know. And obviously we still have the Lucas schedule. The World of Outlaws Sprint Car schedule will probably be out next week, but there'll be other schedules that get announced at PRI. So there'll still be stuff that breaks, at the trade show. Now, this is the type of stuff I'm talking about. This would be fun. Like, why can't we mix in some other stuff, right? I would love to see something like this tried at other places. He says yes. No, I don't agree in any way, shape, or form. I've been at dirt tracks until 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's miserable. No, we can complain about the time if we go to the racetrack. We should expect to get out of there in a reasonable amount of time. We don't have to be there. Why are we being held hostage for 8 hours at the racetrack? That's insane. Yeah, I loved Chet. Chet also just a really nice guy. But yeah, Chet did a great job as an announcer. I know he obviously is pulled back and is kind of doing some other things at this point. But yeah, I was a big fan of Chet as well. Joe Duvall says be on the lookout. Oh, I love this. I'll leave this up to the chat. Chat, answer Michael's question. What do you feel would be the best dirt race to travel to across the country? Let's give Michael some options. There's 175 people in here, so I would hope that we could at least get 50 replies from Michael in the chat. I'm assuming this question is asking if there are tire tests after feature events. No. Once the features are over, teams stick around for a little bit to do, to clean up the trucks and to see some fans, and then they're out and on to the next place. Nobody's sticking around afterwards. This one is certainly, this is something we've obviously talked about on the show, like some of the safety stuff that's coming from the Outlaws, about the door openings and the tank stuff and all of that. It's weird. Like, the one thing you have to remember about some of the safety stuff is like race car drivers are always their own worst enemy. There have been points in time in the past where drivers like didn't want to wear seatbelts because when they crash, they'd rather be thrown from the car instead of, catch on fire. It's like, no, let's deal with the fire part. And so like, there's a lot of that happening. And like this whole thing about how like, no, we should let tanks fly off the sprint cars because then that will keep the drivers safer. It's like, no, how about we just build safer fuel tanks that don't detach in a crash that would both not become flying bombs and also not leak out fuel everywhere. So those two things need to happen. We don't need, heavy fuel tanks from sprint cars tumbling into the infield or, God forbid, ending up in a crowd. Like we don't need that. So yeah. I don't know, like, if I have any super strong feelings about this stuff. The issue is always with the sprint car stuff is like you institute a safety change and then there is obviously a significant cost that all of the teams then have to, undergo or take on. And so things have to kind of be done very strategically so that you don't just put a whole bunch of crap on everybody. And there's been talks of like, a redesigned sprint car chassis that, has more space inside and, it's safer for the driver. But like, as soon as you institute something like that, you basically just obsoleted the entire fleet of national sprint cars. And so things like that are like really difficult to do. But, these things will continue to be incremental. And, from what I've seen, obviously there are people who are not a fan of the stuff that's being talked about with the fuel cells. And I'm not certainly an expert on that stuff, but I mean, I'd like that there is at least some progress being made on some of these items. Okay, so we're starting to get some options here for Michael. So I'm seeing obviously Knoxville Nationals. Yes, I agree. Daniel says World 100, also a great one to attend. PJ also says the IMCA Super Nationals, also a nice big fat event, a lot of racing every year. Fairbury, also a fan favorite. Marie likes Midget Week. The Speed Weeks would always, like, if you could, like, get a camper and just do that, that would be, like, really fun. Tyler, thank you for the $4.99. He says a lot of use of program, working on their program. Our program is really good right now. What specifics out and away from the track does program mean? Program can mean all sorts of things. So you're talking about, you know, how the guys work together over the course of a night. What's feedback like, communication, you know, in terms of technical things, like what shocks are they using? What springs are they using? You know, what's the, you know, what engine are they using? What is the engine tuning situation, right? You know, you in both sprint cars and late models, like how you use the power in your engine is very, very important, right? So like that can be a thing they're talking about. What wings are they using in sprint car racing? You know, are they using, you know, different rear ends, which gears, right? Like it's kind of all of the things, right? Which is why you kind of end up with this one word program. But, you know, when a driver talks about, you know, that stuff, right? Like they're kind of coding, like they're, oh, we're working on something. They don't want to say specifically what that thing is because they don't want to give away, you know, what it is they're working on. But it could be literally any of the above. It's like diminishing returns though, right? Like at a certain point, like just because I spent $35 on a grandstand ticket doesn't mean I want to be there all damn night. You know what I mean? Like give me my couple hours of entertainment and we'll call it good. Like thank you. I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah, World Finals also a great one to attend, right? Like nowhere else during the course of the year can you see, you know, a national sprint car tour, a national late model tour, and a big time, you know, Northeast modified tour all on the same track on the same night. And that place was packed. I was there Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, packed. And I don't know if you haven't been to Charlotte. So you've got Charlotte Motor Speedway, and like it sits on Highway 29, and then you've got Bruton Smith Boulevard that like tees into Highway 29. So the Speedway sits on this side of Highway 29, and then Bruton Smith kind of goes at it off at a T, and then the dirt track kind of sits over here. And there's a huge parking area in between the dirt track and Bruton Smith Boulevard. Cars parked all the way out to the road. I mean, it was absolutely packed. They do have an exhibition race. It's called the Knoxville Nationals. And you see it at Eldora too. We're getting all sorts of options of places to see. Speedy likes the bikini contest at the Gold Cup. Fair enough. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. A fun fact, Colin Coward used to be the sports guy many years ago on the NBC station in Portland, Oregon, which is where I was living, and I used to listen to his local radio show. This is a fair point. Oh yeah, there are a ton of companies that make wings and bodies. Actually, somebody was just sending me pictures of cars running the new 5-star sprint car body. There's lots of engine builders. Yeah, you have all sorts of options for parts and pieces. I don't think this is an easy question to answer about what will and won't work for weekly racing, right? It's like, obviously we can't have it go away, right? Like if you can't have national racing without weekly racing, because where do the drivers come from? But like there has to be a model that exists that weekly racing can continue, that works for both the people who want to race and the racetracks. Does that mean there needs to be less of it? Does that mean the financial model changes? Like, does it become more just about, having a space for people to go race and, maybe not trying to rely so much on ticket sales? I don't know. I think as well too, right? Like we talk about like things promoters can do to help themselves out, right? And why are we so invested in the national tours? Well, we know the stories, right? We know the characters. We know the David Gravel versus Kyle Larson stuff. We know about, Tyler Erb, and we know about Devin Moran, and we know, like, you take the top 10 guys from all the series and like, who they are, their stories, right? We hear about them all the time. You guys are interested in them because you guys are interested in people like me talk about them, right? It's like we don't have that on the weekly level, right? There needs to be some measure of storytelling that goes on at the weekly racetracks, right? And whether that happens on social media, whether that's the announcer doing it at the track, whether it's some combination of all of those things, right? There needs to be more story. There needs to be more characters that come out of the weekly stuff, right? Like if you're going to bring fans in, you've got to give them something to kind of be attached to, right? Why should I go to that racetrack every single Friday night? Well, it's because the guy that's leading the street stock points, he's going to fight with the guy who's running second every week, right? Like Bowman Gray is a weekly track, right? But why is Bowman Gray crazy? Like, because there's a story there every week, right? And like, I don't think every racetrack needs to become the madhouse, right? But like, there needs to be something for people to latch onto. Like, give me a reason to be invested in that weekly track, and then I'll come buy my $15 or $20 ticket and show up every Friday night. Yeah, I don't know there. I mean, I live in this area as well. Things have been tried periodically. We've seen a few events here or there. I don't know that they would like to do weekly events there. We've seen some motocross things happen kind of between the drag strip and the dirt track, and we've seen monster trucks and things like that. But I don't know. I would talk about some of the other stuff, right? Like it comes down to money. I guess if they were making more money, then maybe it would be used more often. I don't know. I don't know what this is referring to. I believe Jason Leffler was driving the Buick car at the time when he was killed, but I mean, I don't think this is accurate at all in right now. This is also a problem, right? Do tracks have email lists, right? Are they using social media in the way that it should be used, right? Like putting out a Facebook post that you have a race on Friday night is not necessarily enough to, enough of a thing to say that you're using social media to promote your event, right? Are you spending money on social media? Are you trying to reach more fans, right? Are you like I was just talking about, are you doing things to talk about the stories of what's going on? Are you talking about your points battles, right? Are you doing all of those things? Are you, taking advantage of TikTok? Are you taking advantage of Instagram and YouTube and all of those things, right? Like there's a lot of things that can be done for not that much money, that could help. But does everybody do that? No, they don't. I'm getting text messages now. Oh, we've been live here. So we'll do 15 more minutes. We'll go to an hour and a half. So we'll call 6:45. So if you have questions, get those questions in now because we're going to go 15 more minutes. So yeah, questions about franchises, silly season, whatever you guys want to talk about. If you have questions about me or what I do here or whatever, feel free. Hit the like button on the videos. Hit the like button on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks to the Patreon people who are hanging out as well. You can check that out, patreon.com/DIRTRACKR. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. We're at 57,000 likes on Facebook. So can we get to 60,000? Let's bump those up. You could listen to the Daily Show on all of the podcast platforms. Yeah. Anyway. You mentioned the gravel versus Larson rivalry. Do you think it would be as polarizing for fans if it were someone other than Larson? Maybe not. I don't know. Like we saw, there was kind of a brief moment where it looked like we were going to have kind of a Kofoid gravel thing. But I do think that gravel also knows what he's doing. You know, creating or starting something with Larson, right, is going to bring attention. So, you know, as we've seen, he kind of seems to be reveling a little bit in this villain version of himself. So, you know, but it's like if he goes after Donnie Schatz, if he goes after Brad Sweet, I mean, I certainly think that those things would also carry some weight. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. I have not seen that Dalton Wilson is driving the 79. I've been told that Cody Overton is going to drive the 79 at least this weekend. It sounded like the Stein team was closing up shop. Someone sent me a rumor today that maybe they're not closing up shop. I don't know. I'm not sure what to believe on that one, but yeah. Just for the record, Blake Anderson is one of my favorite people on this planet. I have known Blake a very long time. When I went to work for the World of Outlaws in 2013, Blake was there then. And then while he was there was when he got hired by Tony to go be the announcer for the All-Stars. But Blake is just good people. If you are ever at a race and you see Blake walking through the pit area, say hi. He is an amazing human being. Like, when I get on the phone with Blake, we usually end up on the phone together for 2 hours, just catching up and talking about stuff, talking about racing. But yeah, one of my favorite people ever. Tonight is rained out for the Hangtown 100. They are still racing tomorrow, but tonight is rained out. I don't believe you will see Macri join a series. I don't think it really makes sense for Macri to join a series. I think he knows that. And like, if you're going to go do pick and choose, right? Like the only way to make it work, and you know, if you're going to run around the country, right, is to win. And not many guys can show up just about anywhere and win like Macri can. So it's like if he can still make a bunch of money and, you know, run in Pennsylvania some, travel where he wants to and still win, I don't know why he would join a series, to be honest with you. I think the Sam's thing is like another one of those. I could see it going either way. It's going to really just depend on what, you know, how the math works out, you know, once we kind of know more about the Outlaw package. I've done long form stuff. I did conversations episodes for a long time. My issue with the long form stuff is actually I have a few issues. We were kind of one of the first when we started Open Red. There wasn't like a ton of stuff happening in the dirt racing podcast space then. And so like we started that show in 2016. And now like there's so much of the long form stuff that it's much more difficult to stand out. Right. So like it used to be that you couldn't just have anybody on your show, right? Like you had to battle to go find people, and you know, the main guys weren't doing just any show, right? But like now there's so many shows and there's so many opportunities for these guys guys to go do stuff, that you can hear all of the big names on anybody's show, which on some level is great, right? Like, it's not hard to start a show and go be able to have big time guests, right? But at that point, it's much more difficult to stand out because, if I interview David Gravel or if somebody else interviews David Gravel, like I'm going to do it very differently than they're going to do it. But like, are you going to view it differently, or are you just going to see that as David Gravel gets interviewed on a podcast? So that's one of the issues I have, is it's very difficult to stand out. And what you'll see is when I want to take time off from the Daily Show, I will go do interviews. So like last year I did, I talked to Jeremy, I talked to Steve Arpin. I had Jonathan Joyner from Hunt the Front on. I talked to Dominic Scelzi. So like I do a few a year here and there, but just like not a lot. And the other part of it is it's really, really annoying to chase people down to be on your show. People will say they're going to do it, then they ghost you, or, they won't get back to you or whatever. And it's just kind of a pain in the ass to do it. So that's why I don't do it more. No, the show is getting posted in the evenings everywhere. My days have flipped. So I used to do the daily early and then do the rest of my stuff later in the day, but now it's the opposite. So now I'm doing my other stuff during the day, and then the show is happening in the evenings. So it's not being posted. It's being posted the same everywhere. I think all are possible and all are not possible. I feel like the late model stuff is just so fluid every year. I'm like not surprised by guys joining, not joining, flipping, all of that stuff. I don't think we'll have a really good idea about this until, kind of maybe after the first of the year, though. You mean like doing a show with Ross? Like there won't be a regular show with Ross. Maybe we could like do a one-off or something, but Ross is a busy guy these days. So yes, this is another. I just did this one a few months ago. I interviewed this guy right here. This guy right here. He was sitting at a racetrack too when I interviewed him. You could see it on the video. Oh, here we go. So apparently there is more news to come potentially about Hangtown. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, like this is a fair point, right? And it's like everybody always gives crap to the Pennsylvania guys. Oh, they don't get off the porch. But it's like, well, I mean, maybe it's a good reason why they don't get off the porch. Over on Patreon, Corey says, growing up in Houston, they used to run a Cheaters Day race where you'd see crazy setups, massive wings, and the rules restrictions were lifted. Is there any other track in the nation that still does something like that? I feel like it's been a while since I heard about a Run What You Brung race. Maybe you guys would in the comments would know better than that, but I don't, nothing is coming to mind right now. So now they're not racing. So I wonder if that means the Overton thing isn't happening now, because I had messages from very good sources a couple of days ago saying he was going to do the Hicks car. But if the Stein thing is not going away now, maybe Overton stays. So now the Hicks team needs a driver. It's very interesting. Who's my favorite interview person? Like someone I've interviewed, or who is my favorite interviewer? Please be more specific. I will say, like going back and like listening to old episodes of Open Red, I wish my show was as good as those episodes of Open Red were. They were so good. It's almost like weird that like when I go back and listen to old ones, that's me on there. This is like always a complaint. I don't know why this ends up happening all the time. I will be curious though to see, like, one of the things Brian Carter talked about on the Wing Nation interview was like fans being able to do more of their own controlling of camera angles on in future division things. So maybe this could get better. I don't know. But this is like always a complaint. It's like, oh, we're watching the leader, you know, who's 3 seconds ahead of the field, but then there's like a battle for third going on that's like 4 wide or something, but we're not seeing that. It's a great question. I don't have an answer for. All right, 5 more minutes. This is your 5-minute warning. I saw somebody else kind of asked a similar question about smaller tracks versus bigger tracks. I think both have their place, right? There are definitely small tracks that don't put on great racing, and there are big tracks that put on amazing racing, right? So I think it kind of depends on the situation. Obviously too, like smaller tracks can be easier on engines, but if there's more crashes, that's not good. So yeah, I don't really know if there's a way to even measure whether it's a better race on a small track or not. Ivan wants to know, how did I get first involved in working on a NASCAR pit crew? So after college, I didn't want to go be a 9-to-5 guy. And my dad also worked in NASCAR for a long time. He was a pit crew member at the time as well. He was also a hauler driver. And I figured if he could go over the wall, so could I. And there's a school up in Mooresville that I went through. This was obviously a very long time ago. I went to the school in 2000. I graduated from college in 2006. And the end of 2006, went through the pit crew school. And then my first real season was 2007. And then I did kind of Devo backup stuff and smaller deals 2007, 8, and 9. And then in 2010, got signed at Roush and pitted my first Cup races that year, and was basically in the Cup Series from 2010 all the way to the end of 2022. And 2022 is when I hung it up, quit trying to compete against kids half my age. So yeah. I feel like the late model one, it's going to be a big guy, Pierce, Shepard. The modified thing, I feel like you get kind of some wild, you could get some guys kind of out of left field to win the modified thing there. So I don't know that there's a great choice for the modified win pick. I mean, I think anything is on the table, right? Like there is all sorts of possibilities that could happen. I don't know. We'll see. You know, there's always like the things you hear, right? Is American Racer doesn't have the capacity, you know, to handle a lot more demand. I don't know if that's true or not. Some people say that is true. Some people say it isn't true. I don't know. Would it be about the cost for the racers, or, you know, would they open it up completely? I don't know. I know a lot of people would love to see an open tire situation. I think people don't remember how miserable the tire wars were. They think that that's just going to fix all the problems. It's not. It's going to create new ones. It's always the law of unintended consequences, right? Like you think it's like, oh, it's going to fix all of these things and Hoosier's going to get their act together and then it'll all be amazing. But that's not what's going to happen. There's going to be people with secret deals, and then American Racer is going to bump their prices up, because why wouldn't they want to make as much money as Hoosier is making if Hoosier really is making all of this money that everybody assumes? So I don't know. I don't know that this is just going to magically fix everything like everybody wants it to. One of my favorite people to interview, and I've interviewed him a few times, is Dominic Scelzi. Like Dom is like knows a lot about obviously racing and is just super knowledgeable, entertaining, like good dude. He's just a fun one to talk to. And he's not the only one, right? Like if I have somebody on the show, like if you see me interviewing somebody, like it's because I like talking to them. You know, I talked to Alex Bowman and I've talked to Chase Briscoe and the Hunt the Front guys. And, you know, Jeremy Elliott and Chase Rodman. And, you know, it's like, if you see me interview somebody, it's because I'm stoked to have them on. Like, I'm not just going to put on anybody just to do an interview. It'll be somebody that I want to talk to. All right, I'm going to wrap up. We'll see if I can fit in. Do you think Buddy was on the path to NASCAR as a Toyota development driver? Has that changed since he had a lot of success in sprint cars and isn't going the Corey Day route? I don't think Buddy is going to go the NASCAR thing. He had kind of an opportunity. He ran a couple of the truck races on dirt, but I don't see him going that way. Like, I don't want to say it's not possible. Like, it's still possible, but I think Buddy is very much committed to sprint cars right now. I don't know that he is, you know, super focused on NASCAR. Like, you know, if they came calling, I don't think he would say no, but I don't know that this is, you know, I don't think we have to worry about this as much as we did with Corey Day. All right. It is 6:45 here on the East Coast. So I'm going to say so long to everybody. Thanks you everybody for tuning in. We'll do this again soon. I know that, like, I don't do a great job of, like, promoting, like, that we're gonna do these. I just today just was like, oh, we'll go live for a little bit. But we'll try to do these more often. So yeah. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all of the things that you hear people like me say. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the racing, and we will see everybody on Sunday for the Daily Show.